So back when Joe Biden had the bad debate performance, I never one time got on here and tried to spin it that it was good. I never one time got on here and tried to spin it that that was a good situation. I realized that Biden gave a bad debate performance, and I did not make excuses for it. And most of the content creators on the left that I follow didn't either. We all recognized how bad the debate performance was, and we held Joe to account. We did that because we're not in a cult. But what we did was we sat back and watched the mainstream media just go after Joe and hammer him for weeks. It's been over a month now, and they're still hammering him over that bad debate performance. He's out of the race now, and there's still people bringing it up. There's still people holding him to account. There's still people now asking Vice President Kamala Harris about that moment. They won't let him go. But yet Donald Trump goes on stage in front of black journalists and comes completely unhinged, completely unglued, and proves to anyone beyond any shadow of a doubt that he is not fit to lead. He does not have the temperament to be president. He does not have the respect for the American people to be president. He does not intend to lead everyone. He only intends to look out for himself and only people that will say yes to him. If there ever was a moment that should be Donald Trump dropping out of the race, this should be it. This should be the moment where the Republican Party gets a backbone and says, we're never going to get behind this again. I'm going to be watching to see if the mainstream media holds Trump to account for this disastrous display of his character the way they did Joe Biden for having one off night. We'll wait and see. But I am going to show you some clips from this. They're hard to watch. I want to start off with this first question right out of the gate that was absolutely fair, and then we're going to talk about Trump's response to it. Roll the clip.
I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you?
Okay, the reason why I cut the clip right there and I'm not going to show his response is because those of you who have seen it are sick to your stomach and you're still trying to get over it. And those of you that haven't, it's pretty predictable what he said. He started off by talking about what a nasty question it was and how she must work for ABC. It must all be fake news. But what was unfair about that question? Everything in her question was absolutely true. He did question where Obama was born and demanded his birth certificate. He did question where Nikki Haley was born. He did tell people to go back where they came from. He did use words like animals and rabid and criminals and thugs. He did attack journalists. We've seen him do it. We've seen him mock them to their faces. And he has had dinner with white supremacists. So it was a completely fair question, but he doesn't want to be asked the fair questions. He doesn't want to be fact-checked either. We're going to talk about that in a minute. He doesn't want any of that. If you question him about the type of person he is, he pouts like a little girl and like the little narcissist that he is and says, you're being unfair to me. Now, this next question is a great one because they bring up J.D. Vance. And they point out how that J.D. Vance loves family and how J.D. Vance thinks that if you have kids, then you have a stake in the game. If you don't, you don't. And they also talk about how that J.D. Vance doesn't like divorce. And, well, Trump's been divorced a couple of times. He doesn't like this question either. And he begins to just say things that aren't true. And they begin to fact check him. And you can imagine what happens next. Roll the clip.
J.D. Vance?
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in. To your point and to Rachel's point, he, has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself or divorced people like yourself. Do you think, well, my point is here.
But at least it was said in a friendly manner.
My point is, Do you think the Republican Party is getting a little bit too judgy about people's lives when you think about abortion or when you think about what J.D. Vance is saying?
I don't think, look, I think that the Democrat Party is really the one that has the problem. I think they're radical on abortion because they're allowing abortion in the 9th month. They're allowing the death.
I think it's
they're
about
allowing
freedom,
the death of a baby after the baby is born, based on the governor of Virginia. Based on the governor of Virginia, they're allowing the death of the baby after it's born. They're allowing abortions in the 8th and 9th month.
Well, Democrats have denied.
I think they're right. And
I am so glad to see someone finally calling him out and saying that is not true to his face, because we have had to sit back and listen to them talk about, oh, they're up for abortion in the 9th month and even after the baby is born. That does not happen, folks. That is illegal. You cannot do that to a child after it's born. The clip cut off right there, but what I wanted to point out was this argument they've made about it happening after birth. They got that story from Virginia, because the governor made it to where that if a child was born that was not going to leave the hospital, we're talking about a kid born so sick and with an illness that that child is not going to be able to leave the hospital, and so we're going to keep it comfortable until it passes. That's what that was all about. That was not aborting the child after birth. That was comforting the child and making the child comfortable until it passed away. And they pounced on that and they politicized that, and that shows you how truly sick in the head they are to take something like that. Can you imagine the pain that someone would feel knowing that they just gave birth to a child and they had to keep it comfortable until it passed? Can you imagine the pain? I can't. I can't imagine what something that horrific would feel like. And yet MAGA used that as a political talking point and stunt. And it's absolutely disgusting, and it tells you exactly what kind of people they truly are. And J.D. Vance, for all of his love of family, Donald Trump has been divorced. Donald Trump has kids by multiple women. I have been too, so I'm not here to throw stones. But I do know that in the churches and around me where I live, if you're a Baptist minister and you get a divorce, you're put out. You're no longer allowed to be a minister if you get a divorce. If your wife has been married and had kids before she met you, you're not allowed to be a Baptist preacher in my part of the world. They will put you out. And the same people, to all you ministers out there who have been put out over a divorce, how does it make you feel to sit back and watch them let Donald Trump be president of the United States? How does it make you feel to that they let him be the face of your movement? You can't preach in your little podunk town, but he can run the free world. You don't see through the hypocrisy in that, and that doesn't get under your skin? Well, speaking of getting under skin, this next clip is the worst. I saved it for last because, God, it's bad. This should end anyone's political career. But what Donald Trump says next about Vice President Kamala Harris is truly disgusting, and I'm only going to show it to you so I can continue to make my points. But if you've not seen it, you can skip ahead. If you have seen it, you can skip ahead. If you've not, here you go.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
how do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir,
of
I'm
that.
asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you
I
would.
just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So, I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly, very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always
But you know
identified
what?
as a Black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
Black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do
And
you
I
believe
think,
that
I think
she is
somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
So here's my takeaway on this whole thing. Donald Trump was out of his element, and he was truly intimidated because he had black women asking him questions. And he realizes he's going to be running against one who used to be a former prosecutor. He knows he's a felon. He knows he was found liable of sexual abuse. He knows he's the very kind of person that Kamala Harris has prosecuted in the past, and he's absolutely terrified. So he was a complete duck out of water sitting there. And getting back to the whole fact-checking thing, he tried to blame it on faulty equipment, tried to blame it on them, say that they jerked him around for 35 minutes. No, he didn't want to go on stage. It's being reported that he didn't want to go on stage if there were fact-checkers going to be there. Stop and think about that for a minute, especially if you're one of these people that says, oh, he loves to speak his mind, he loves to tell it like it is. Well, if you are going to tell it like it is, but you don't want fact-checkers around, you're a liar, plain and simple. But what he said right there should have ended anyone's political career. And to anyone out there who is still defending this guy at this point in the game, I want you to understand something. I want you to hear me loud and clear, okay? I know you don't like me to start with, but here we go. No one is taking you seriously. You're a laughingstock in this world. We're sitting back at this point watching just how low you're willing to go and just how cruel you're willing to allow this man to be. You're not owning liberals when you say these things. You're not owning liberals when you share these kind of clips. You're not crushing it when you answer questions that way. What you're showing us when you answer questions that way, and when you get behind a person that answers questions that way, you're showing us that cruelty is not a deal breaker to you. Rudeness is not a deal breaker to you. Misogynistic people aren't a deal breaker to you. Racism and bigotry isn't deal breakers. You're showing us exactly who you are when you throw your support behind that guy. And I think it's all but fair after something that terrible that should have ended anyone's political career, by the way. I think it's only appropriate that Vice President Kamala Harris gets the last word on this. Take a look.
This afternoon, Donald Trump spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists. And it was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better. The American people deserve better. The American people deserve a leader who tells the truth, a leader who does not respond with hostility and anger when confronted with the facts. We deserve a leader who understands that our differences do not divide us. They are an essential source of our strength.
This country does deserve better, and we're going to have better come November, because we are not going back, folks. We're not going back to that way of living. And Donald Trump cannot stop talking. What have I said here on the channel this entire time? I've said, folks, he does not have the ability to change up his fighting style. He does not have the ability to adapt to a new opponent. He's going to dig in his heels, and he's going to get worse. And to black people out there, and to women out there, and to Asian women and men out there, I truly sympathize with you as to what's coming between now and November, because they're going to dig in their heels, and they're only going to get worse. I've had a lot of people asking, and I've asked the question, is he going to drop Vance? You know what? I don't think he will now, because it's clear to me that they're going to double down on that type of rhetoric. And you want to know why? Because they do not want us at their club. They do not want us there. They don't want us to be a part of it, and they're making it perfectly clear. And once again, I want everyone to know where I stand on this. This is not about Democrat versus Republican to me. I'm not up here arguing for a Democratic idea. I'm not up here arguing for a progressive or a liberal idea versus a conservative idea. I'm not arguing for an atheist idea versus a Christian idea. It's none of those things, folks. It is about basic respect, and it's about human decency, something that Donald Trump doesn't have any of, and something that his supporters looks at and sees that it's not a deal breaker to them. To anyone out there still defending him at this point in the game and letting that get a slide, we see through you for who you really are. This is you raising your hand and saying, oh yeah, don't forget me, I'm that way. The one thing about Trump, and I don't like it, but the one thing about Trump is he exposed everyone around us for who they truly are. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You know where they stand. You also need to remember they're fired up and ready to vote come November. So you got to get fired up. Replay that clip every day if you have to. I know it sucks to hear it, but replay it over and over and ask yourself, does Donald Trump care about everybody, or does he only care about himself? Does Donald Trump have the temperament to be president? No, he didn't even have the backbone and the spine to sit and talk with a journalist that he didn't pout like he was in the second grade. And I'm sorry I said that. That's an insult to second graders. I mean, I really believe, I have an idea. I think they just ought to hold a dinner at the White House and invite Dan Quayle and Howard Dean and be like, hey, we're sorry we ended your political careers because one of you couldn't spell potato and the other one of you got excited and screamed at a rally. We owe those people an apology. Hell, at this point, we owe the family of Richard Nixon an apology. It's gone beyond anything I've ever seen, but it is absolutely beyond politics at this point. I'm not voting for Democrats. I'm voting for a good leader that has respect and has compassion and has empathy and is a leader and who can take the tough questions and who can roll up and will roll up her sleeves and go to work for all of us. That's who I'm voting for. Donald Trump is a complete circus act at this point, and for those of you that still enjoy it, have at it, because I don't want anything to do with it.